Okay. Season 3, Eugene.
I know. Notice I'm keeping quiet actually because as I re-listen to the last season, I'm
Yep.
like every episode I started, Jim Joyce, it's Wednesday, so I'm trying to let you take the lead now.
Yeah, we're just celebrating every single Wednesday. One of the critics said last time that we spent with Martin, we spent the first 10 minutes just saluting each other,
Yeah,
toasting each
which
other.
speaking of, I know it's crazy that it's 2 o'clock, but I'm ready. Last week was easier because I was on I was on the European time zone.
That's right. Are you excited to have jet lag?
Honestly, I don't even know. I mean, it's funny how you kind of fall out of, when I was traveling back and forth and all the time, it was kind of no brainer. Now
Yeah.
it really hits me hard. But, one quick update. So it's today we're doing this out of this wonderful garage. Next week,
Right.
we're going to do this out of the garage. The week after, it'll then be in Barcelona. So I don't know for how many viewers and listeners are watching, but we're moving. So we finally got the visas. So I'm gonna cheer to that because that's
Almost.
exciting.
Congratulations. Big news. The circuit. Yeah, I was talking to some of your friends and everyone was excited that you've tackled the Spanish in American bureaucracy during the pandemic
I
for
know.
4 years.
Who said
Amazing.
something? It's like the pain of Spain. We've overcome it so far. So looking forward to enjoying the time there. But
Yeah, I think it's a
anyway,
great time to run tail into the U.S. After the debate performance last night.
oh,
We don't
I,
need to go there.
are we gonna go there?
I don't think so. I don't think,
No,
I
I
think
don't
that
think so.
this is a safe space. It's a safe space.
Exactly. Anyway, how was your week? Otherwise, you're in the
Yeah,
office.
yeah. In the office, we're in the office, kind of burning the midnight oil on all sides right now. Talking to Australia this morning, obviously to you this evening. So in the office, working away, plugging away. I have nothing interesting. The other thing I'm obsessing about is with my son now going to Scotland. So UK, Scotland, we're back in lockdown city.
Yeah.
We're well into, I won't say the word, but well into our second wave here. And then I was on the phone with Australia this morning, and they're out of it. So the seasons, the Australian summer is starting to hit now, and it looks like as if it's seasonal, in fact. So, anyways, all good news coming forward. All good news.
No, listen, it's kind of interesting. I put it on Instagram when I arrived to JFK, and nothing, no temperature checks, no warnings that I should be in quarantine. It was a self quarantine. I went in for I think 72 hours, and then I actually used a service. It's a startup, Ziphycare.
Okay.
Amazing. It was like COVID test. So I had a care coordinator all within the app.
Right.
Hop on with a care coordinator. They brought on a doctor to just make sure I have no symptoms. And this was just a routine precautionary. Literally 15 minutes later, a nurse shows up to the door of the place I'm staying at. And next morning, I woke up to luckily negative result. So I was pretty impressed by the coordination of it. But anyway,
There's
speaking of
money in
still
COVID.
New York,
There's money
said,
in COVID. I said there's money in COVID.
hey, what did you have on the other side? Anyway, this our guest today. I was trying to count right before this. I've known her. So I started at Metka when my older daughter was born in 2002, and I met her shortly thereafter. So holy
Wow.
crap, like almost, I guess, 18 years, which doesn't realize it. And then one day it's like, oh, this person is in Berlin living. And but anyway, so I'm going to very quickly say her name, but I think she will do her own introduction because I haven't kept up with her. But Rashida Bobb, who I'm going to
Right.
let in.
Yeah, no, in Rashida, I met Rashida. It could take a while to guess how I met Rashida.
Oh, Health Excel, right?
I don't think so. And she ended up joining us.
Hi.
Hey, we were just talking about
Hi,
you.
guys. Oh,
We're
I
just
can't hear
talking about you.
1 second.
Uh-oh.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Can you hear
Excellent.
us?
Don't say any bad words because we're already recording.
Oh, great.
How are you? How are you? Looking fresh?
It feels weird to see the both of you without being at a conference or a bar.
That's our reputation.
I mean, we made our own virtual conference. This is it. And we made our own virtual bar. This is it. So I'm cheering.
I have my shot glass, but we should wait. Should we start? Do we start with this or do we end with it?
Yeah, it's
All right,
just
throughout. Cheers.
Okay. Yes.
Take it when you have it. Take it when you have it. So
Rashida, I was trying to calculate before the show how long I've known you. And my recollection was the only reason I know when I started Metco is my older daughter was born, and the 2 days after I started Metco. And I think we met shortly after. So it must have been anywhere between 15 to 18 years now that we've known each other.
Exactly.
But
and
was that in the U.S. or in Berlin?
U.S.
Okay.
New Jersey.
In Love.
That's right. Franklin Lakes.
So Eugene hasn't properly introduced you yet, other than saying
no, that's true.
That he knows you. So for our millions and millions of listeners, please tell us who Rashida Bobb is. Over to you, Rashida.
I thought you was going to intro me. Okay, sure.
Oh no, I as Marty calls me, I'm the laziest host ever. So I.
No, I can introduce myself. So I'm Rashida Bobb. I am kind of broadcasting from New York City, my whole town, the Bronx specifically. I've been in healthcare for a long time. I use a lot of eye cream, but more specifically, I started on the operations side of healthcare and strategy, and I've worked for health payers, PBMs, just working with Eugene at Metco back in the day, pharmaceutical companies, health systems, and I started my career early off in management consulting, and so it only makes sense that when I became a corporate refugee, I went back into consulting for my consulting career again. So I have a consulting firm called Bricks Health, and I named it Bricks Health because our goal is to dismantle the bricks that separate progress and healthcare. Ooh. And there's a lot of bricks. I can talk all day about that. But so as a firm, we do strategy consulting, product market fit, and all the different operational processes for people who are trying to either do deals and with startups. So those are the investors or the corporate investors or private. The best work experiences of my life working for startups. I'm always trying to be on their side and help the traditional companies work better at partnering and investing in them.
Fantastic. So quickly, talk about how we met. We met we met at Health Excel, but we quickly went off to an island together. We quickly went off to.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, James, I think you need to elaborate why the island. Other people there, it was not just the two of us.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was a whole crew. We brought the whole Health Excel crowd. We did karaoke, I think, first. Yes. The night, and then we drove to Galway, and we went up to the Aran Islands, which was like this tiny, incredibly cold, beautiful, but quite.
I missed that one. Yeah. I always miss the good ones.
Yeah, it was this one. So we went off to the island, hung out in the Aran Islands for the day. We went to Galway for dinner and hung out in the day.
Exactly.
So you were just you were just met at the Health Excel crowd at that stage, right? Like you didn't.
Exactly. On the podcast last before me, so I'm in good company. Right. That's my first Health Excel event. I love the group. I love the kind of intimacy. It was just like the right people in the room. And that was my first trip to Ireland, my first of 3 trips in like 1 year. So obviously it made a good impression. I love Dublin. I love Ireland.
You went back to Ireland 2 more times.
2 more times. I went back for Easter, and I also went back for another event. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it does suck you in a little bit because it's funny because the weather's not great, but the people are kind of fun.
I've been here for 14 years. That's also they all, when you say you're from New York, they're like, yay, my cousin's from there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, There's the what's the area? I mean, when I was living in Washington Heights, right above it, Inwood.
Yeah.
That was a very Irish neighborhood, right?
Yeah, there's an Irish neighborhood in the Bronx on 233rd. For some reason, the name is slipping my head. It's small. It's next to Kingsbridge area. It's a little bit north. It's near a really famous cemetery.
Yeah,
but it's
totally.
fun.
I totally know the area because I went to school in the Bronx. I went to Fordham University in the Bronx, so we used to sneak up to the Irish pubs up there, because it was.
There's an Irish pub somewhere, everywhere.
Yeah, the name is escaping me. What's the name of that place? We'll think of it in a second anyway.
Wakefield. It's Wakefield. That's the area, I think.
Okay.
Wakefield.
Okay. And then how's New York?
New York is going okay. I mean, it's highs and lows. I think obviously we're trying to, and I say we need a collective New York curve and avoid having another restriction and quarantine period. There's some increase of incidents in a lot of neighborhoods where there's some celebrations. I think a lot of them are Hispanic Jewish neighborhoods, but I think there's some new kind of initiatives.
Okay.
They're opening up the restaurants indoors, 25% capacity, so no longer have to eat in front of exhaust and honking horns. So we'll see. I'm trying to lay low. I love to eat out, but for me, I try to find something elevated or really quiet to eat out at. I don't try to go. My social life is not the same yet.
Though I have to say, I mean, we've been going as a family and actually quite enjoying the outside seating. It's almost like we felt back like we're in Europe.
Yeah. Exactly.
And the difference is, I mean, I was just in Italy where, I mean, the outside seating was actually not really outside with just like some windows open on top. But I mean, the separation, the plexiglass and a lot of the stuff. So I actually feel pretty comfortable in New York. And I mean, outside of certain areas, I think I just saw some, peaking, 3, 4, 5% positivity rate. Overall, New York's been doing pretty well, and I've been impressed with mask wearing.
Yeah, and Eugene, to your point, I agree. Like, there's a lot of restaurants in New York City, so I like the ones with a little plexiglass, and they put the little pretty flowers and leaves. They try to they really decorate or elevate the outdoor space, and there's some that are not trying as hard. So I get to be collective New Yorker.
I was thinking, Eugene, like how we're going to have, like with some of the projects that I've been involved with in healthcare where we say we introduce a pharmaceutical medication that's almost effectively like a cure for a condition. And you have the strange reaction, like say hepatitis C, or, now you can do like your blood transfusions, like there's different treatments that control different conditions. But a strange reaction happens to patients is when you remove the disease, when the disease goes away, they actually get upset because it's associated with their identity. They go to the hospital. So I feel like, are we all going to feel like this once we get through this thing? Like we're going to miss these times.
I don't know. I'm going to do a big dance.
I'm not in regular life to just eat where I want, drink where I want, hug people whenever I want to.
Yeah. Okay, so how long have you considered yourself in digital health? Like when did you start to kind of grab onto that moniker?
That's a good question. It's funny because for a while, I know learning about Health 2.0 events. I went to one in the West Village. I forgot we used to have them down the West Village near SOBs. So next to the downtown, I used to have these afternoon Health 2.0 like showcases. And I remember being there, and I think Eugene and I don't remember seeing you, but I'm sure you were there also. And I remember seeing these pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, people are doing all these cool things in digital healthcare. I'm too bad I'm stuck in this like corporate world. And then I realized that I actually was doing some of the early foundational things of digital health. It just, we weren't calling it that. It was before the nomenclature changed. But I was working on telemedicine and chronic disease management using pharmaceutical protocol as a way to increase the touch between the patient.
What year was that? I'm just trying to, and this is where we'll loop in Matthew, right? Because I actually thought the meetup that now Alex Fair been the lucky sucker running it, as he always says. We started 2008, and we kind of looped Matthew into changing the name at the time. So I didn't realize that there were other things.
Yeah, and I think there was also, I forgot, also, I think it was a co-promotion with the incubator that used to be, I don't want to, that was in New York.
Blueprint Health. Blueprint Health. Yeah.
Blueprint Health plus Health 2.0. And this was probably 2010 or 11, I want to say. But yeah, so
anyway,
it's funny enough, I was doing, when I worked for 4 years, I think, 4 years. Actually, sorry, 5 years with Medco and Express Scripts. And the projects I worked on the last 3 years were all about kind of increasing access to health records for caregivers and increasing touch points between patients and the clinical team, especially those with chronic diseases, using telemedicine solution. That is digital health. We just weren't calling it that. We just call it strategy or technology, you know. I'm a nomenclature person, but we weren't using the terminology. So I thought it was what other people were doing. And I realized I was doing it in that kind of entrepreneur standpoint. So I say 2012, 2011.
Sure.
All right, so a decade.
A decade.
Almost
a decade.
And so what happens now? So like, and then you went off and moved to Berlin. You went to Berlin. You went from New Jersey to Berlin. I think that's you and Eugene have the same path.
I never
it's a very common path. New Jersey.
I only worked in Jersey, so I was a crazy commuter. So basically, I hated the commute, and so I thought I might as well move to Berlin. I moved to. So I stayed with the company for 5 years. Had an opportunity with the Bosch Stiftung, Bosch Corporation.
Sure.
The Stiftung is a foundation in German to work as a consultant with Pfizer and then a VC called Peppermint Health.
And that's where you met Dom Kennerson, right?
Yeah.
That's how, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
So actually we met later. So Dom was a couple of years before me. We met on the phone virtually and didn't meet in person until probably 2016. But yeah, so that brought me to Berlin. Original plan was to be there only for 1 year. And then I stayed. I continued doing work. I got hired by Pfizer. And I also worked with Peppermint Ventures for,
Klaus, that's right.
With Klaus, who's obviously a really good friend, Klaus Stöckemann.
You pronouncing his last name much better than I can.
Come on. I'm sorry. My German has gotten so bad. Forgive me, all my German friends.
I will forgive you. I promise.
So then Eugene has told me that you're really into pain.
That's a good. All right. So first you're talking about islands, getting away on islands. Now you're talking about pain. I love it, Jim.
I told Eugene to carry me through this episode.
James, that segment
no, you're carrying. I'm just gonna sit back and relax. I love it.
James, that is excellent. No,
pain.
I know. So yeah, it's my new obsession. So I know I'm talking to the audience of people who live and breathe in this world of digital health, innovation, and all the new hot topics. And I'm kind of on this campaign to make a hot topic of pain management.
Okay.
And better yet, before pain management, proper pain recognition. And when a person, especially when a woman comes to a clinical setting, whether it is urgent care, ER, or to a specialist, and they have complaints of pain, there's been multiple studies, including by New England Journal of Medicine, that a woman who goes to ER presented with pain symptoms is seen an hour and a half later than a man. And it goes back to how pain is diagnosed, assessed, and of course, how practitioners are trained to recognize pain. And a lot of women, being the great verbal creatures we are, and I'm not being facetious, it's true, we are much more verbally astute. We use a lot of words that I think sometimes clinicians don't listen to. And I think also you're often asked to rate your pain from a scale to 1 to 10. And the pain sometimes is just not believed, especially if you're a woman, especially a woman of color. And then secondly, because the pain is basically taken by, the intake is basically what the patient is saying, the doctor doesn't have enough information. So sometimes someone's complaining about pain, but the biomarkers are not showing that. So I've just been really obsessed with different companies that are looking at different biomarkers, different variables, anything to help.
What are the biomarkers for pain? Biomarkers for pain or what?
Yeah, I was
They're
gonna
not-
say, what are other, like, because to me it's like the 1 to 10 is the simple thing, but like I'm curious what.
I mean, that's probably from 1900, so we can do better than that, right? So there are some correlations in cortisol. There's correlations, cortisol is one of them. Also, adrenal function also shows a lot of pain variation. Electrolytes, yeah. So if you think about anything that measures that, so that could be measured in your saliva, that can be measured by your sweat,
Okay.
that could be measured, of course, in different blood tests. I mean, there's some really interesting things happening with different companies.
Like pain's such an interesting topic because one person, one person's measure of pain, so your capacity to absorb pain, or if you've lived with pain for a long time, then it's a relative condition. That's
Exactly.
fascinating that they're trying to put an actual clinical biomarker, but then it's kind of have to be against yourself a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, I have a good friend. Actually, you met her. I won't mention her name for her personal confidentiality, but Jim met her. We hung out the last time in the Bay Area for JP Morgan. But she suffers from sickle cell anemia, and she actually had a flare-up, which required her. So when she is in pain, because her pain tolerance is so high, sickle cell anemia, for those who don't know, is basically named after the way the cell looks like. It's actually a disformed cell of your blood cells, which of course your blood cells run throughout your whole body. And they sometimes have pointy ends. So basically cause pain throughout the whole body. And there's obviously some areas that's very painful. And my friend has had this diagnosis since she was a teenager. It's genetically predisposed to people from the African continent and Caribbean. Okay. And she's lived abroad, but she's in San Francisco, great health system. She has pain, she has experts, she knows what's wrong. So after being at home in pain for a couple of days, she goes to the ER. She explains, I've done this before. These are my veins, please put a drip. I know what drug I need. And literally it took, and I'm not exaggerating, a full 26 hours for them to give her the right pain medication and give her the right infusion that she needed.
This is the power of the e-patient, knowing their body, knowing what they're going through, knowing the triggers.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's a multifaceted issue. I mean, it goes back to the training when people are clinically trained in the continuing education in the health system. A is to believe pain. I know there's a lot of people who are abusing opioids, but to me, it doesn't take much to look in someone's clinical record and see someone has a diagnosis or has a series of complaints that could be correlated to have a real pain. And also listen to the patient. And unfortunately, this happens a lot. And that's like an example of when it definitely shouldn't happen, but it also happens with people who have, women who have pelvic pain and endometriosis and a lot of other pain after childbirth. So there's a lot of other times that it's actually.
But is the theory on the theory is it's more diagnosed, or the data says it's more diagnosed in men, and it's less diagnosed in women of color. That's why. So and yeah, and is that is the thesis on that they because I always think of they have the joke and I'll make a joke about pain, but or how do you change an Irish mother's light bulb? How do you change an Irish mother's light bulb?
Jim and his jokes.
Say, don't bother, I'll just sit in the dark. Don't bother, I'll sit in the, so they kind of they famously just grin and bear. They don't tell you. They have I'll be grand. I'll just sit in the dark is the kind of the right punchline. but is it because they don't report it? They don't report it, or is it because you think they report it and it's misinterpreted?
So I think it's a few things. I think one, it's mainly when it is reported, and that's obviously the opportunity for us to create interventions and things. Right. When it's reported, it's not believed. Because if you take the regular metabolic panel and you're looking for correlation with other assessments that you use to diagnose, if the labs or the other biomarkers are not proving it, that are traditionally used in health systems, they just don't believe the pain. And the idea and what they've realized from research is that when men present with pain, they believe them. And it's nothing more than bias, subjectivity, Women, I think it's also, I think people look at clinical diagnosis, a lot of clinical diagnosis, the research group are usually men, white men. And so they don't understand how different diseases can progress differently, and women at different ages and women different ethnicities.
Sometimes I don't believe myself, so I don't know.
So I mean, just to, I guess, because it's a complex thing, it's multi-layered. It's the research that is creating the clinical guidelines and the diagnostic guidelines that is skewed. There's bias in how people practice medicine, and there's also, you know, just there is also probably a little bit of, like you said, your Irish joke, kind of grin and bear it, because most women especially have had pain through menstrual pain at different parts of their life. And so maybe there's something to be said at elevating your pain. I think you know, this conversation, we need to put a bunch of like 1,000 doctors in a room, and nurse practitioners and clinicians, and like figure this out.
So is there a way to almost like transparently measure the pain? I mean, if you're working with any cool startups that are trying to sort of demystify pain, like anyone we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So there's some startups I'm not working with directly, and there's some I am. So I'm working with one startup called IRA out of Australia that is actually helping with pelvic pain diagnosis and treatment. And pelvic pain is obviously a very common area for a lot of women. They're out of Australia. Not sure if I mentioned that. There's a startup that just changed their name. I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting their new name, but I know them as, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. It'll come to me.
It'll come back to you. We'll forgive you.
Yeah, but basically what she was doing, I was working for, oh my gosh, it's right there. Anyway, I was working with, the research came out of Yale University where she used sweat electrodes, so basically patches to measure things like cortisol level, that can be used for multiple things. But of course, one of the things they've been researching, saw correlation, is with pain management. They've done some pivot because whenever they try to pitch the woman of fintech value, it was hard to get the investment. Another topic. So that's one. That's enough. I know Dutch. I think Dutch Pharmaceuticals is another company. They have at-home tests where they're doing cortisol levels. That's the only point. There's a cool company called G.I. Jane, I believe their name is, and to look them up. They're out of Oakland, and they're kind of measuring pain for endometriosis patients.
They say, you know, and does your interest like move into like, we started doing some work recently with the new, you know, kind of biologic injectable medications that are managing migraines, you know, where there's this whole new class of medications, and, you know, migraines is like this kind of completely underdiagnosed or kind of underreported or undertreated area. Does it kind of fall into that area too, or is it more? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I think those companies doing innovation in there, it's really important. Migraine is a whole nother pain category that I think clinicians are used to hearing complaints about. And I'm curious as to, now that we have those new treatments, if there's more touch points and more understanding with that clinical condition.
Did you feel like when you look at the pharmaceutical industry, like it just funds so much of the underlying kind of objective research. So if you have, you know, good medications, you know, coming out in a certain area, like just take like rheumatoid arthritis, or even like, you know, the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, there's so much work in that area because there's so many biologics and, you know, medications in rheumatology. I remember like 10 years ago, or probably 15 years ago, there was nothing, you know, you had no medications. And now there's, you know, a litany of fantastic medications at the whole industry, and like rheumatologists are like rock stars, you know, because they're, you know, making, you know, $1 billion industries by what they prescribe. So who prescribes in pain? Is the GP?
Well, so, and because my obsession is kind of skewed towards pain in women and undiagnosed pain in women, it's a lot of time it's OBGYN, and a lot of time I do think it is the acute health setting. So talking about, you know, just talk about your average woman who's, you know, a worker, a caregiver, a superwoman. Unfortunately, by the time she goes to complain about pain because of endometriosis, painful ovulation, anything around, especially around the feminine health system or her fertility or not fertility. But whenever she comes for that, usually the first complaint is the OBGYN. But OBGYNs really rarely, unless you're pregnant, it's really hard to get a same day appointment. So the person usually ends up going to the ER or to another acute care facility. So a GP is sometimes needs to be educated, definitely, and educated and prioritize how to help that patient navigate a specialist consultation faster rather than later.
So Eugene,
women are sent home and said, "Oh, just go check with your OBGYN."
Were you going to check on my pain levels since I haven't had another shot yet? I wanted to, because you kind of mentioned you're working with some startups, and I know, fundraising has been a passion of yours, right? You've spent some time with Klaus and Berlin, but I know in the industry. And I mean, there's definitely from a flow of dollars, euros, kind of into the underrepresented founders. So what has been your experience? Because I know you're kind of moving and shaking in the space in the world. So
yeah, no, that's good too. Thanks for bringing that topic up. Yeah, so I'm sure everyone knows the last year, I would say last year or two, especially in the US, and also I see movements happening in the UK and some in Germany and other European markets. But there's this idea of like, how can we fund more diverse co-founders to make solutions for the full population?
Right.
When we're in healthcare, it makes sense. You're not, you want your solutions to be used by everybody, not just people who have insurance who make over 200K or the upper echelon of society. And so, there is, I would say in the last year especially, this idea around underrepresented co-founders. So these are people who are more diverse, and specifically Black, Latinos, women, older women of color. There's just not enough of those co-founders that are getting the investment that they need. So
is there a lot of them? Is there a lot of them in general? Like, is it?
There are a lot of them. So what I end up doing is taking a lot of time that I sometimes don't have, but it's just my passion, is mentoring. Whenever I hear a company that's smart and it has a co-founder or the founding team has a woman or a person of color, I try to, at the very least, listen to them and open up my network to them. So there is a good amount of them. And then when they've done the research, there was a Harvard study, and I think there's also a study by, I want to say McKinsey, don't quote me on that shows that especially women of color co-founders, that their ROI on investment is 4 times that of the majority, which is white men co-founders. So you say this, you're like, okay, so why are there not more investments? So I know a lot of investors say there's a pipeline issue. There's not enough of them. So I disagree. There are enough of them. It's just the network is not the same. I have an excellent network. I attended 2 Ivy League schools. I've worked for top 100 companies. I know you guys. I open my network, and I'm always surprised when I say, don't you know such and such at Ventures? Are like, no, I don't. And I realized that introduction, and when you get that introduction to someone else, that helps with the fundraising in the seed stage, which is so important, especially in healthcare or in other areas, to get them to get in over like 6 figures and $1 million ARR in their first couple of years to get that big round that they need.
I think we're going through this like phenomenal time. I was thinking about we just appointed 2 new members from our board, and they, we had a woman that was actually the Prime Minister of Ireland who just come onto our board. At one stage, she was the Minister of the Health. Yeah, I was very excited about that. And then another woman that I worked with for years out of Keisha Mohammed, that she's actually out of Pennsylvania, and she worked with me in the US, and she was at UPMC recently. But when I went to my board, just to give our story, not to give us kudos or anything here. So my board, I didn't choose largely because if people gave me investment, they asked for a board seat. And, kind of, I needed the money. They were good guys. They had lots of expertise. And, they came on the board. So when we started appointing non-independent directors, I went and appointed these 2 women, and to a person, every single one, it was literally a 20-second, it was literally maybe a 5-minute conversation explaining their background, why I liked them, endorsed them, and and they obviously had very good reputations and very like high competency levels, but just on the board immediately. Now, if I had brought in, someone that looked like me onto the board, that would have been interviews and extensive meetings or whatever it is. And so and probably like a level of mistrust, so almost like we have to get to know the person. We have to kind of do that at a different level. So I think it's a phenomenal time of, like it's just so much opportunity, there's so much opportunity because people are hungry for it. And then they came into the meeting and they were more prepared and they were disciplined, they had done the work, they were just phenomenal,
But look, Jim, I mean, I think there's all kinds of people, and the reality is the negative shit still happens. I mean, we're lucky to have awesome investors, right? But through the process, I mean, Marina and I are like pitching together, and we've had some of these, calls and pitches with VCs where, I mean, even virtually, you can tell they're looking at me, and I'm kind of like, well, Marina's the CEO. She's a kick-ass, fucking amazing woman, right? Like, why are you staring at me? She's the health coach, right? Like, but it was pretty obvious, and anyway, it's frustrating as shit.
Yeah, and you're talking about two different topics, but I will kind of adjust first, Eugene. I mean, I think a lot of investors do this thing called pattern matching. They see a pattern between their investments and other investments in their specific area that they feel comfortable in, and they see a certain pattern: age of the co-founder, how long the co-founder team knew each other, market they're going into. They have not had the trust, or I hate to say, the cojones, the balls, the guts to see if they can make a new pattern outside of what everyone else in Silicon Valley, who has kind of made this investment structure popular around the world. So that's the first challenge, is that when a co-founder brings an innovation to you and it does not have the same pattern as other investors that became other investments that became unicorns in 10 plus years, or whatever success metric they're looking for, how are you able to listen and disrupt and actually put your money behind being innovative? Because if you're going to look at VC, like the whole point of VC, why people take money from VCs versus traditional growth and private equities or angels, is the idea that they're investing in what's next. And to me, it doesn't really make sense that pattern making does not take into concern. And one of the factors is that, yes, this person might not look like other co-founders, but let's talk about how that makes that person more successful instead of less successful. So I'm not surprised that story, Marina. I think it happens all the time. I spend a lot of time coaching and hearing the two companies pitch to me. And it's really interesting when women pitch. I was on this selection committee last week, and we had a woman who came from Y Combinator who pitched. She got some money from there, and she was ballsy and she was bold, and there was other women on the panel like, oh, she was arrogant. I'm like, I love arrogance. But at the same point, I also love another company as co-founder, Samantha Scott. She's doing great work out of Johns Hopkins of MLS, a medical device, MLS, and it's called June Brain. Remember that name. And I think Samantha is a great researcher. She has a PhD. She's very educated, but she's more of an introvert. She's a scientist. And I mean, why not? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg's not a people's person. People gave money to him. Sorry, Mark, but that's what they say. So why? That's
why he invented a social network, because he was antisocial.
Exactly. So I just want investors that are in the power, or network, or ecosystem leads who are in the power, to listen, and only sponsor, either invest your money or find an introduction outside.
I think it's one of these things, like like you do a good job, building your network, right? Like, so if you feel like for some reason you're out of the club, because you don't look like the other people, or because, they don't look at you when you're in the room, like to your point, that you're somehow, then it's hard to network with those people. It's kind of intimidating, right? It's like, so, and I think the network is the network is so important. Like at the end of the day, the investors invest in people that they kind of can get familiar with and they can trust, and that kind of represent certain things.
Which, by the way, I'm usually the time checker, so we're pushing it now.
Okay, and then I just want to follow up on what Jim was saying about board diversity. So I've had some personal conflict the last couple of weeks, but I am going to launch the next 2 weeks initiative called the Marula Project. I've been working on this with college friends who have HR and executive, HR experience and employer law experience. And the Marula Project goal is to diversify boards. And we're really focusing on boards for a company like yours. So Jim, I don't know why we didn't connect earlier, but I'll forgive you. Companies like yours, companies that are scale up phase, companies that are between Series A, Series D, the companies that who are not, top 1,000, but are going to be there in a couple of years, who have some independent board seats that it will help to be filled by qualified professionals, qualified leaders, and we want to do that action. So if there's anyone who listens to this who has awareness of board seats, I've already developed a database that has thousands of people in it. Going to get more. I'm tapping to my network from my schools, professional associations. We're also thinking of adding clinical advisors, diverse clinical advisors, because diverse clinical clinicians usually see more diverse populations. And I think it's really important as companies grow, as they're using technology, as they're building marketing campaigns, as they're doing sourcing, that they kind of think of diversity purposely as a win-win, as a way, as part of their metrics of success. And I think having that in your board really helps with that.
It's a great call to action, and I'll certainly ask you for the link. I did see you post, I think it was a Google Sheets doc a while back. Yeah.
We've been collecting things to the Google Sheets. We got some good partners, and we're just putting some things on.
Awesome.
Awesome. Great work. Well, congrats getting that off the ground.
Thank you.
Yeah, and all that, managing it through the epicenter and through the last 6 months. So crazy. But it was awesome. It was really awesome to.
Already? Oh my goodness! This was fun.
Yeah, I know it flies by like crazy. So cheers to that. And on that note.
And then also, you'll probably put how to reach me, but find me on brickshealth.com.
Absolutely.
It was great hanging out with you guys. I wish there was more drinks.
Well, we can do this off camera too.
Okay, exactly.
So on that note, brickshealth.com. We'll post a bunch of the links, Rashida, and then the viewers and the listeners, just hit that subscribe button.
Okay.
All right.
I want all my friends to do so. Bye, guys.
Cheerios.